Hello, friends and family, and welcome back to our channel. I am super excited to talk with you today. I hope you're doing well. Listen, today, I really thought about something after our last conversation about anxiety. And you know what I thought about? I realized that anxiety is so much bigger than one conversation. I mean, we focus heavily on being able to identify if we're experiencing anxiety, specifically generalized anxiety. And we talked about things that we can do to get better, but there are so many more layers to anxiety that we have not uncovered. And so I thought it would be really important to look at anxiety today, but as it relates to toxic relationships. Yep, you heard me correctly. So if you're interested in what we're going to be discussing today, please stay tuned. All right, are you ready? Let's get into it. Welcome back to our channel. Welcome back to Choosing to Live Now. My name is Taneshia, and today you heard it. We're going to be talking about toxic relationships and how toxic relationships are related to anxiety. Friends, I think this is so important for us to discuss today. I am super charged about it. Okay, let's go back and do a small recap. So we talked about anxiety. We talked about it personally. We talked about we needed to face our fears. We talked about the importance of removing anxiety from our life so we can be free. But friend, can I ask you a question today? What do we do when we are living in a life where we are full of or are experiencing toxic relationships? How do we thrive? How do we live if we have a toxic relationship? Friend, do you have an answer? I mean, because if you do, I'm interested. Because I don't know if there's one right answer. I'm going to give you what I think, but I'd love to hear what you think. That's a question, isn't it? I know. It's a doozy. How do we keep living if we have toxic relationships around us? How do we become our best self? How do we move from survival mode and just existing to living if the relationships in our lives are toxic? Friends, I guess before we do that, one of the most important things we need to do is define what toxic relationships mean. And listen, I can't really give you a formal definition of what toxicity in a relationship means to you. But honey, I can tell you what toxicity means to me. And I got two examples. You ready for them? All right. The first one is when you're in a relationship with someone, okay? And you are giving so much grace, so much love, so much care and concern to them when they are in need. You are present with that person. But when you need that same level of grace given to you, the person that you're in a relationship with is unavailable. Did you hear that? Can I say that again for the people in the back? Okay? You're in a relationship with individuals who you give so much grace, love, care, and attention to. You're present, you're there for them. But when you need the same level of support, they are not present. Now, I want to be clear to distinguish it, that there are instances in life when you and the people in your life are going through similar things at once. And while you may still be able to find a way to give grace and patience and concern and be present for them, they may not have that capacity at that time. But what's toxic to me, friends, is when you've been in this relationship for 2 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, and more. And this is the way that relationship goes. When you're giving, and the individual you're in a relationship with is taking. And you get nothing in return. To me, that's toxic. Here's my second example of toxic. Another example of toxic for me, friend, okay, is a relationship in which I am in this relationship, but the person I'm in the relationship with loves me when I create a variant of myself that they prefer, and I am that variant around them only. I can't be my full self. I can only be who they prefer that I be. So I'm never able to be my full self. And friends, if you knew me, my full self is something else, meaning hilarious, fun, loving, exciting. I'm not faking with you on this camera. Friends, I'm like this in real life. Okay? Last episode, I gave you a little shoulder move because I danced to everything. That's my real self. So imagine being in a relationship where my vibrant personality is dumbed down or being requested to dumb down in that environment so that I can fit whatever that person prefers so that we can get along. Honey, to me, that's toxic, especially over a long period of time. Now, if this is you and you've experienced it, I would classify that as being a toxic relationship. Now, there are many other versions of toxicity, and we'll get to them a little bit later, other sorts of examples, but those are my two main, scenarios that really, get me going. Or as I would say, because I'm from down south, they really fry my chicken. Okay? Get me going. All right. So then let's take it to the next level. When I have seen this most, where you have to have these varied relationships, have been in professional settings. What about you? Huh? Friends on the side. What about you? Listen. Can I tell you? I'll give you an example. Imagine working at a job where you are hired based on your resume. You have come into the interview, you have dressed in a certain capacity, you have spoken in a certain capacity, and they've decided to hire you as you are, friend. But when you get into the environment, you notice that all of your feedback from your supervisors and your leaders is that you need to change a little bit, just so that you could fit this particular mold. Now, it's nothing like you. And I'll give you an example of the change. Let's say you're honest and you believe in treating people with equity and fairness and justice. But this environment is saying we need to make the sale. So we're not really as concerned about your values as much as the sale. And so you are in a quandary, friend. Why? Because you need your livelihood. You need your bonus. Okay, you want to move up and get a supervisory role. You want to keep your job, period. And you're very nervous about who to be. So what happens in these environments is that in order to stay alive, okay, sometimes we tend to create a variant of ourselves for the purposes of fitting into that false narrative created by the job. Yep. Did you hear that? We're back to false narratives. Did you think they were going away? No, friend. This is the reason why I'm giving you these building blocks. Every round goes to the next level. Okay, so these false narratives, what happens, do you think, to us when we have false narratives for long periods of time? I'm going to tell you, friend. Little by little, over years, over months, we begin to believe the lie that we are portraying ourselves to be. And eventually, we begin to alter and shift our authentic self if we don't move away from those environments or find ways to navigate them appropriately. To me, friend, that is a toxic relationship. So I ask you then, what do we do? Now, I know somebody out there is saying, honey, I would quit because I'm not going to change who I am for anybody. Wait. I'm with you. But what about if there are no jobs in your area? What if you have major debt that you got to pay off? What happens to you if, while it sounds good to quit, you have no other resources except for this job? What if you don't have the education required to be the supervisor in another way and you have to stay in that role? How then do you just quit? Yeah, it gets heavy there, right? It's so easy for us to be prescriptive over ourselves and over other people. But remember, all of us have different levels of grace. All of us have different levels of privilege, right? Some of us have the privilege to be able to walk off of a job. You know what gives us privilege? Sometimes the money that we have saved in our bank account. Some of us have 6 months plus in our bank account to be able to sustain us if we quit. Some of us have, the highest level of education in the field we're working in. And so if we leave this job, it's easy for us to get another one. But what about some of us who are just making it? We have a vision. We had a vision for our lives. But now that vision has become dormant because we created a variant of ourselves in this environment we have to work in. We need this seed money from this job to be able to work on what we really care about on the side. And if we don't have it, what do we do? And yet, while we're in this environment, we've created a variant of ourselves that is making our vision for our life die. So we're trying to live, but there's these conflicting variables. Why? Because of toxic relationships. Friend, if this is you, put it in the comment section that you get it and you understand. Because friend, I've been there. Can we take it another round higher? What about if the toxic relationships are not transient? Because a job can change at any time. You can move to another department. You can take another position at another company. You can, if you have the privilege, quit that job and just start working on other things, outside of that company in order to sustain yourself. But what if those relationships are not friends? What if they are family? What if they are people that we have to be around all the time? Oh, friend. What do we do then? How do we get through that? Because let's be real. You can walk away from your family all day long, but they still belong to you. And you are so rooted in these relationships with them that it is often difficult to be able to find your way out of them because you have connections with them that is deeper than any words could ever say. Your heart is connected to them. And people will say, just cut them off and go about your business. But then who would you be connected to? One thing I can tell you about this is that according to the World Health Organization, not only is mental health related to our ability to cognitively process emotions and get through life and make proper decisions. Positive mental health is developed when we have healthy relationships and support systems. Friend, World Health Organization, 2018. So then what do we do if we have this toxic relationship and we walk away from it? Then what does that do? It leaves us vulnerable to having support. Oh God. So what do we do? How do we get through this? And then how do we stay in a toxic relationship if all it does is increase our anxiety? I'm glad you asked. So there is this wonderful theorist, okay? His name is Dr. Bowens. He created a system, a theory called the Bowens Family Systems Theory. And he gave a lot of different examples of individuals with toxic behavior. The general gist of his theory suggests this, that anxiety lives oftentimes in an emotional family. Oh God. Let me say that again for the people on the side. Did y'all hear that? Here it goes. That anxiety often lives in an emotional family, in a family unit. So then as a result of that, okay, anxiety is often present in an environment because the members of that family pick up anxiety, pick up excessive worry because they're unable to communicate effectively in that environment. And you know why? Yep, you guessed it. They're not able to be their authentic self. Oh God. So according to the theory, Bowens says something like this, that we should be able to be our authentic self. That is the highest order of being in humanity and in being a part of a relationship in any system. That we need to have the ability to be able to be emotional and have a contact with our emotions. We need to be able to be connected to groups, but also to be able to be separate as an individual, to be able to manage our well-being outside of the group. And when there is a commingling in this group where we're not able to be our full authentic self, we're not able to be validated in our emotions, we're not able to work and be who we need to be, heal the way we need to heal, it causes anxiety to live in our lives and causes us to be reclusive. That means we back up from being who we're supposed to be. And we end up losing who we are. Friends, is that you? Is that you? Friends, is that you? Oh God, today. Okay? Let's take it to the next level. All right, so here's what happens in a relational setting. And this could be your family or at your job, where you are not validated as yourself. Oh God. You become emotionally cut off. You know what that means? That means that you become so distant from the internal mechanisms that make you feel how you feel, that make you think how you think. You distance yourself internally, not just from your emotions, but from being connected to others. Friends, is that you? And as a result of that, you avoid, oh God, we back to avoiding again. You avoid healthy connections with people in your life. And then in relationships that you need to be connected to in the future, you are unwilling to connect. Why? Because of these initial negative, toxic relationships that we've been a part of that did not originally allow us to be ourselves. Oh God. So then, as a result of all of this disconnection and this avoidance, you begin to become emotionally unstable. And you start to live out and produce those characteristics that we talked about the other day with anxiety. You have sleep disturbances, you are restless, you are tense, you are angry, you are frustrated, you are overwhelmed. Why? Because you're not able to be your authentic self, my friend. You become a shell of yourself and begin to just survive. Why? Because you can't just cut off these relationships. You can't cut off your family. You can't fully cut off your job because you need it. So as a result, you really become internally overwhelmed with so much emotion that you're not connected to it. So you're having these physiological symptomologies like not being able to sleep, like we just shared, like muscle tension. All of those things come over you because of this excessive worry about these toxic relationships. So what you saying, girl? What you saying, Taneshia? Here's what I'm saying. I am saying that all anxiety that you experience in your life does not come from you. Oh God, today. It is a possibility that this anxiousness that you feel, this lack of sleep, this irritability is not about the idea that you're worried about some external experience in your life. It could be that your relationships are toxic and you need an intervention in those. If you can change your mind, you can change your life. And if you can change the way that you conceptualize these relationships and how you deal with them, you can change your life. Before I go into strategies, let me say this to you, friend. Do not take on someone else's anxiety if you can. Learn how to be able to separate yourself from an experience and identify the patterns of the people that you're in relationship with. Are they reciprocal? Do they care about you? Do they listen to what you have to say? Do they allow you to be your best self? Do they make you dumb down yourself to be a different version of yourself? Do you feel uncomfortable around them? Do you feel unsafe? Because when you can separate yourself from their issues, you can be free. Just mentally, because you know for a fact that it is not you. Be encouraged that you could actually be 100% fine and then go into work and feel all this anxiety and it doesn't even belong to you. And that is what we're coming to target. So here are my strategies for you today as it relates to dealing with toxic relationships. The first thing I would suggest for you, I would say is this. Identify the toxic relationships in your life. And what I mean by identify them is really take the time to think about what they are, who they are with, and what makes them toxic. You need to understand that to understand how to move forward. Identify them. Identify the toxic relationships in your life, what they are, who they're with, and what makes them toxic. Okay? Number 2, after you've identified the toxic relationships in your life, determine the level of relationship that you have. What are you saying, Taneshia? Determine whether or not, friend, that you need to stay in that relationship or not. Because there are some relationships, whether they be intimate partner or whether they be friends, that you don't need in your life. And if you have the grace and the community to get out of them, I want to give you permission to let yourself free and to step away. Yep. Step away if you can. Okay. Number three. If you're unable to remove yourself from that relationship, then the next thing you need to do is to determine what these relationships do to you when you are in contact with individuals that hurt you. What does it do for you? When does anxiety show up for you? How does it show up for you? Then you're going to ask yourself, number 4, have I ever addressed it with the person? And if I did they listen? Or if I haven't, would they listen? Because let's be honest, everybody is not going to take feedback that we give to them. But if they will or not only depends on if we've ever tried to reach out to them and let them know that we were hurt or we were despondent or we felt a way that was uncomfortable. Because you can't think that people can read your mind. Sometimes people are trained in their family structure to communicate the way that they do. And if in their life, those behaviors they're giving you was their norm, they're going to give it back to you thinking like, what? That's what you're supposed to do, when it is not. So if it is a relationship that is worth salvaging, or even if it's not about worth salvaging, you cannot get out of it easily, then have you addressed it with them? Next, change your thinking. What do you mean, Taneshia? What do you mean change my thinking? Here's what I mean. So we've already identified that this relationship is toxic to you. You've already identified why it's toxic. You've already dealt with the way that these individuals have treated you and whether or not you've addressed it or not. You've dealt with all of those things. So now that we're here, we're changing the way we think. Meaning, begin to uproot the negative narratives that this relationship have given to you. And really begin to prioritize the truth, your core fundamental values, over the lies that they told. And begin to speak those things over yourself. Remember, I told you that your words have power. So if you're in a relationship that's making you dumb yourself down, let's say for money, you can change the atmosphere of that environment by changing the way you talk about yourself. Instead of dumbing yourself down, saying that you are what they say you are, speak to yourself about who you really are. Because I'm going to be honest with you. Once you start speaking to yourself about who you actually are, you're going to find a way to be free from that relationship, even if it's difficult. You're going to find a way to heal and walk through that relationship. Whether it be confronting individuals, whether that means that you are walking away, whether that means that you are limiting how much time you're spending with them, you're going to find a way to be free when you can speak to life as yourself. Did you hear that? Yeah. And then finally, friend, I want to take a couple of moments, not too long, and really explore other types of toxicity in a relationship, such as physical violence. Physical violence is toxic, and we want to remove ourselves from that. Yep. We don't want to be in an environment that is physically toxic. So in that environment, find some support. Send a smoke signal, and get free. Any type of toxicity in a relationship that defames you, that defames who you are, that alters who you are so far. It's one thing to have different views of opinion of whether or not we should make this step or that step. Give an example, work. But if it ultimately changes who you are, you might want to consider finding a way to be free from that. And then lastly, friend, I want you to know that it is really difficult to navigate through toxic relationships in families, but there is a way to go about that. One way to go about getting out of toxic relationships in families is individuals create families, meaning they create support systems outside of the family. Whether it be, chosen friends that they're closer to, whether it be support groups, whatever that may be, find your tribe. If you can find your tribe, they don't have to be blood related to you. And while you can't fully disconnect from the family, you can pick and choose when you spend time in toxic situations. I actually had to do that in an experience in my life with a family member, where I had to choose when I could talk to them and when I couldn't. And because that relationship was not something easily removed from my life, it was very tricky how I did it. But I was able to do so without disrespecting them. And here's the last thought to remember. Just like you are wounded and hurting at some point in your life, just like you were, these people are currently wounded. They have not healed. They don't see themselves as they properly should. They may not even have a proper vision for their life that is built off of a positive core value of truth. And while you might be angry with them, forgive them. Forgive them. Process the grief of the fact that that relationship has hurt you and release it. And then have compassion for them as you heal from what they've done. But remember that your life matters. Remember that your well-being matters also. And that being in environments that alter who you are long-term can also alter your purpose, your destiny, because you go in a different direction. You are worth more than being a variant of yourself. Get help if this is not enough of a conversation that can help you. Find therapeutic interventions. Find support groups outside of your family. Whatever you do, don't go through toxic relationships alone. Learn how to navigate them. Remember, change the way you think about yourself. Separate yourself from their toxicity and separate yourself from their anxiety, from their stress. It doesn't belong to you. Thank you so much for logging in today, friend. I'm so grateful that you stuck with us today. I hope that what you heard was helpful and insightful. And I can't wait till we talk next time. Listen, remember this. You are not alone. I am with you. This, friends, is a community. It's a safe space. Things have been difficult and unusual, but friend, we're gonna get through this together. If you like the content on this channel, please like, please share, please comment, and subscribe. Listen, if you're getting help from this channel, please share with other people you know. Pick your favorite video, your favorite conversation. Share that with someone and tell them to share so that we can grow our friends and family in this community. Until next time, friend, blessings to you today.